06:15 on January 30th, 1944, First Lieutenant Robert Hanson strapped into the cockpit of his F4U Corsair at P North Airfield, watching 18 Grumman TBF Avenger torpedo bombers taxi into position for the most dangerous mission in the Pacific Theater. 23 years old, 21 confirmed kills in 17 days. 1 week until he was scheduled to rotate home. Japanese intelligence had counted 70 fighter aircraft at Rabaul, the fortress base that held Simpson Harbor. The math was simple. 8 Marine Corsairs escorting 18 torpedo bombers into a hornet's nest, defended by 70 enemy fighters. Marine Corps had lost 43 pilots over Rabaul since November. The Japanese knew every approach vector. They had radar stations on every hilltop. Anti-aircraft batteries ringed the harbor. Hanson had arrived in the South Pacific in June 1943 with Marine Fighting Squadron 2 Alcitine, the Black Sheep Squadron. His first combat kill came on August 4th, a single Kawasaki Ki-61 Tony fighter over La Vela. By the end of August, he had 2 confirmed victories. Then came November 1st, Empress Augusta Bay. Hanson attacked 6 Japanese torpedo bombers single-handedly during the Bougainville landings, forced 3 of them to jettison their bombs before they reached the beach, shot down 3 more. The rear gunner of a Nakajima B5N2 Kate caught him with a burst that shredded his fuel tank. Hanson brought the burning Corsair down on the ocean. 6 hours in a rubber life raft. USS Sigourney picked him up after dark. He transferred to Marine Fighting Squadron 215 in October, the Fighting Corsairs. By early January 1944, his total stood at 5 confirmed kills. Then something changed. January 14th, Simpson Harbor. Hanson got separated from his squadron during a high-altitude bomber escort. Found himself alone above a formation of Japanese fighters preparing to jump the American bombers. He dove straight into the middle of their formation, shot down 5 Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters in 12 minutes, landed with 14 bullet holes in his Corsair and 3 gallons of fuel remaining. The other pilot started calling him Butcher Bob. January 20th, 1-0 destroyed. January 22nd, 2 zeros and 1 Tony. January 24th, 4 zeros in another solo engagement when he got cut off from his division over Simpson Harbor. Again, the Medal of Honor citation would later describe how he waged a lone and gallant battle against hostile interceptors, striking with devastating fury. January 26th, 3 more zeros. 16 days, 21 confirmed kills. The nickname spread through every squadron in the South Pacific. Butcher Bob Hanson, the India-born son of Methodist missionaries who had become a wrestling champion in Lucknow before joining the Marines. The other pilots watched him with a mixture of admiration and unease. Hanson flew with a cold mathematical precision that bordered on recklessness. He did not avoid combat, he hunted it. When Japanese formations appeared, other pilots maintained formation discipline. Hanson broke formation and dove straight into the enemy. His commanding officer, Major Robert Owens, had tried to ground him twice, told him he had done enough. Hanson was scheduled to rotate back to the United States on February 10th, 1 week, and he would be on a transport ship heading home. But January 30th was different. Intelligence reported a major Japanese convoy movement near Rabaul. Every available bomber would hit Simpson Harbor. Every available fighter would escort them. If you want to see how Hanson's final hunt over Rabaul turned out, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories from World War II. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Hanson. The briefing officer marked the map with red grease pencil. Approach from the southeast. Bombers would come in at 12,000 altitude. Fighters would maintain high cover at 15,000. Expected enemy response. Massive. Hanson walked to his Corsair in the pre-dawn darkness. Bureau number 56039, the same aircraft he had flown for the past month. The same inverted wing fighter that had carried him through 6 consecutive missions over the most heavily defended target in the Pacific. The engine caught on the third blade. That distinctive sound of the Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp radio, 2,000 horsepower, 417 mph maximum speed. At 0648, Hanson taxied into position. The Corsair ahead of him lifted off. Then it was his turn. By 0730, the formation crossed the northern coast of Bougainville. Simpson Harbor was 90 miles ahead. Hanson checked his ammunition. 6 50 caliber Browning machine guns, 400 rounds per gun, 2,400 rounds total. Over the radio, the bomber leader called out the approach vector. The Corsair pilots acknowledged. Hanson switched to squadron frequency, and then someone spotted them. 21 Japanese fighters climbing out of Rabaul to meet the incoming strike. The Japanese formation was climbing through 9,000 F-21 fighters. Intelligence had identified the types through binoculars from observation posts on Bougainville. 17 Mitsubishi A6M0s, 4 Nakajima Ki-44 Shoki fighters that the Americans called Tojos. The Zero had ruled Pacific skies for 2 years. Maximum speed 331 mph, rate of climb 3,000 ft per minute. Turn radius so tight that American pilots called it supernatural. 2 20mm cannons and 2 7.7mm machine guns. In a turning fight, the Zero could outmaneuver anything the Americans flew. The Corsair had 86 mph speed advantage in level flight. Better armor, more firepower, but the Zero could turn inside it every time. Marine Corps doctrine was simple. Never turn with a Zero. Use speed and altitude, dive, attack, climb away. Never get slow. Never get into a turning fight. Hanson had violated that doctrine 16 times in 17 days. The bomber leader called out the enemy formation high and to the north. The 8 Corsair pilots acknowledged. Standard doctrine said, maintain formation. Protect the bombers. Let the enemy come to you. Hanson rolled inverted and dove. The other 7 Corsair pilots held position with the bombers. They had seen Hanson do this before. He would slash through the enemy formation, disrupt their attack, force them to break formation, and pursue him instead of the bombers. It was tactically sound. One fighter sacrificing positioning to scatter 21 attackers, draw them away from the vulnerable torpedo bombers. It was also statistically suicidal. Hanson was diving alone into a formation 21 times his number. The mathematics of combat said he would be dead in 90 seconds. The Corsair accelerated through 400 mph in the dive. Hanson picked his target, the lead Zero in the formation. Standard tactic, kill the leader. Scatter the formation. At 800 YD, the Japanese pilot spotted him. The formation began to turn. Too late. Hanson had altitude and speed. The lead Zero was growing larger in his gun sight. 600 YD 500. The Zero was turning hard left, trying to evade. 400 YD. Hanson pressed the trigger. All 6 50 caliber machine guns opened fire. The convergence pattern was set for 300 YD. At that range, all 6 streams of bullets would intersect at a single point. The tracers walked into the Zero's fuselage. The fighter shuddered. Pieces flew off the engine cowling. Black smoke poured from the engine. The Zero rolled over and went into a spin. 1 down, 20 remaining. Hanson pulled out of the dive at 5,000 off-errant. The Corsair's speed carried him through the Japanese formation before they could react. He reversed course and climbed. The Japanese formation had broken. 15 fighters were turning to pursue Hanson. 6 were continuing toward the bombers. The tactical goal was achieved. The formation was scattered. The bombers had breathing room. But now Hanson had 15 Japanese fighters on his tail. The closest Zero was 400 YD behind him and closing. The Corsair was faster in level flight, but Hanson was climbing. The Zero climbed faster. The distance was shrinking. 350 wide, 300. At 280 wide, the Zero opened fire. Tracers streaked past Hanson's canopy. One round punched through the vertical stabilizer. Another hit the left wing route. Neither strike was critical. Hanson pushed the throttle to maximum power. The Pratt & Whitney screamed. The Corsair was producing every ounce of thrust the engine could deliver, but he was still climbing. The Zero was still closing. At 240 wide D, Hanson's snap rolled right. The Zero tried to follow, could not match the roll rate. Hanson completed the roll and dove again. The Zero followed, but now the geometry had changed. The Zero was behind Hanson, but no longer in a favorable firing position. Hanson was diving again, building speed again. The separation increased, 260 Wattgetreiber to 300. Hanson leveled off at 3,000 FT, pulled back on the stick. The Corsair climbed vertically, 4,000 opera, $5,000, 6,000. The airspeed was bleeding off, 300 MEPUMO 280, 260.